Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Dr. Ankur Patel does not care how old you are, because he says age is just a number. Dr. Patel, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you for having me.
Now, I know this is your area that you work with all the time. Do you find there's really a big difference between someone's chronological age and their biological age?
Absolutely, because, I have seen patients in their 60s who feels and act like they're in their 80s, and I've seen patient in their 80s who feel and act like they are in their 60s. And that's what I say. Age is just a number, and chronological age is, and I always tell my patients, I don't treat all 75-year-olds the same way. And the reason is because their biological age is different. And what I mean by that is chronological age is just your date of birth, your real age. But biological age is your chronological age plus your lifestyle, your weight, your nutrition, and other medical condition. All those combined makes your biological age. And that's how when I go and treat patient, I keep chronological age as one factor, but I look at patients' overall other risk factors when I'm treating them.
And I'm just doing some math as you're talking, and I'm thinking, if somebody's 70 years old, if they act younger, they act like a 60 or a 58-year-old. We don't consider that childish, but that's younger than 70. On the other hand, if they go in the other direction, they could be acting 78, 80, 82. Put together, that's a difference of 20 to 25 years. And I think all of us want to feel a little younger, or at least come across that way, whether it's by personality, looks, clothes that we wear, etc. So I think you're going to help us today. Is that right?
Absolutely.
And I like what you say, and I definitely highlighted that in my notes. You say, knowledge is power when you implement it. So the tips you're going to be giving us today, as I've gone through your book, they're simple, they're basic, and they work. So if people are looking to be a little younger, or at least appear a little younger, listen to what Dr. Patel has to say, and you'll find some happy results. Now, something that amazed me in your book, I think you said there's something like 52 million people who are 65 or older. This is 16% of the population. This is going to go up by the year 2050, and it's going to be 21% of the population. That's a pretty big jump, am I correct?
Yes, that is big jump. That pretty much means that 1 in 5 of Americans will be older than 65. And that's where I always say the silver tsunami, where there is an aging population, and it's okay. That's part of the natural process. But are we prepared for that? And one of my goals is, through my book, is I want to make sure that we are prepared for the silver tsunami. And a lot of time we always wait for, insurance company to make decisions for us, or government to change the policy, or health system to do something. My focus is on, why wait for somebody else to make those changes when we can make changes to ourselves and stay healthy?
And you have a lot of great tips in your book, and that's what I love about it, and I think our audience will. But tell us, again, you started us off in the book with some numbers, and they impressed me at least. What is the average age of a person today? What are we living to?
Average life expectancy in America, according to the latest study, was around 78 to 79 years old. And that has significantly improved over the past few decades. And that has mostly improved because of the medical treatments we have, the prevention of the vaccination we have, which is a good thing. But I always say that one is living longer is good, but that is quantity of life. But the second question is, ask yourself, do you really have quality of life? And that is something we always need to focus on.
Now, that's a great age for all of us. I think if someone said to us, or when a baby was born, would you take that age of 77 or 78 or 79? I think we would all check that box. And I'm reminded of the joke we hear from a lot of comedians. If I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. Well, that's what you're giving us today, right? You're going to be telling us little tips.
Absolutely.
And you and I talked about it before the show, but in your book, you had some tips. Your grandma gave you 3 tips, and I know the respect you have for her. And what did she live to, 93 or 95?
93 years old 93? And on no medication or no chronic diseases like diabetes or hypertension.
Which is even more amazing because I think that's what most of us want. We hope we can live to a nice age, but more importantly, in good condition, no chronic diseases, nothing that's painful for us or making day-to-day living difficult. Can you give us the tips your grandma gave you?
So, my grandma was my biggest inspiration, Bill, and she was a very independent, spiritual, educated, and motivated woman who devoted her life in helping others. To me, she was my Mother Teresa. And she used to always tell me that, if you have any more challenges in life, stay with positive mindset. And few things that I followed her life is she had a good routine. And when I say routine is waking up, doing her prayers, so she was involved spiritually, eating healthy diet, keeping herself active, which we will talk about socialization, which is one of the important factor in human life, and physical activity. And when I say physical activity, I'm not telling something to climb a mountain. It's literally 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week. So I'm talking about 150 minutes a week, decreases all cause of mortality by 33%.
Now, I want to go over that number again with you because that was amazing. And again, I went through your book and I made notes all over the place. But if we just spend 30 minutes a day doing some type of exercise, and we'll get into that later on, what ones you recommend as people get older, but doing actual exercise. And we don't have to run a race or do anything mountain climbing. I know you're not pushing us to the limit. This is simple, basic exercise. That reduces chronic diseases by 1/3, 33%?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is it just me?
Yeah, mortality.
Mortality. Wow, that's an awesome number.
Yeah. And when I say exactly, when you say, exercise, I even kept it more general, physical activity. And that could be walking, doing gardening, playing tennis or golf. We were just talking about anything that keeps your body moving is considered as physical activity. And that is huge. And what I say is 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week. I'm talking about there are 1,440 minutes in a day, and I'm only asking for 30 minutes, which is 1.5% of your time.
And I think that's wonderful. And people, have all these devices they can get. So even if they want an exercise bike, I guess, in front of the TV, I like walking. I think that's great. And you were talking about socialization. If you do that with a friend, you're knocking off 2 categories. A half-hour walk isn't much. That's a half-hour TV show.
Yes, absolutely. So when it comes to physical activity, it's also the benefits that you get is your bone health, joint health, and muscle health, I call it. Muscles is something you use it or lose it. So you better use it, right? People talk about, my bones are getting weaker and doctors are telling me to get on a medication to get my bones stronger. But physical activity itself can keep your bones stronger. It reduces your risk of fall, which is huge. It reduces your risk of developing chronic disease, cancer. Keep your mind sharp because a lot of time, my patients are worried, I'm aging, I'll get dementia. And these are the things that keep your mind to improve your health. So that's the whole laundry list of physical activity, but also you mentioned about socialization. And that is absolutely important because I tell my patient, if you have 2 choices, one to come see me for an appointment, and your second option is go and grab lunch with your friends. If you are medically stable at that particular day, go grab lunch with your friend and we can reschedule my appointment. And the reason I say that is somebody who is more socialized versus isolated increases the risk of somebody who's isolated more, increases the risk of dementia by 50%.
That's
Heart
another
attack
amazing
by
number.
30.
50% for dementia and heart attack by 30.
30% and stroke by around 28%.
I think most of us would pay you a yearly check if you could give us that guarantee, and you're giving us the tip and not asking for anything, just what socialization means and what a difference it could mean to all of us.
Yes. And when we are talking about mental health, especially during pandemic, it reduces your risk of depression and anxiety. And that's where socialization, I know it's not a prescription that doctors send it to the pharmacy, but it is a prescription for my patient that they know that I will always appreciate them socializing in any shape or form. And that could be, again, going to possibly church, going for a walk, which ideally I will advise my patient. I never thought about it. Walking for 30 minutes with your friend is socialization and physical activity in the same 30 minutes.
Two for the price of one. Dr. Patel, before we go on, I'd like to let our audience know, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan. Our guest today is Dr. Ankur Patel, Patel. His book is Age is Just a Number. Dr. Patel, would you tell us, one, where we can get the book, and if there's a website where we can learn more?
Yeah. So my book is available on Amazon. You can search for Age is Just a Number, Dr. Patel, and it will come up with a beautiful cover with a bench with sunrise or sunset that you can imagine sitting on your bench and reflect to your life. And the best way to contact me is always my website is www.dr, Ankur, Ankur, Patel, Patel.com.
We're going to give that information again. And to anyone out there, if you say, I love my uncle, I love my dad, my grandma, my grandpa, do yourself a favor. Get hold of this book. Even you just spending a little time, as Dr. Patel said, a little socialization, that means so much to people. And then they take it and talk to their friends and tell them what their grandson, their nephew, their niece did. And they're very proud of that. I think he's giving us a lot of great tips. And again, if you go on late night TV, they want $300 for some device, etc. This is all free. These are things you can do just by listening to him and reading the book. Dr. Patel, when people talk about successful aging, what kind of answers do you get from people?
That is a great question, Bill, because actually all patients used to ask me that, Dr. Patel, what successful aging means to you? And it's not about me. It's about you. You need to ask yourself what successful aging looks to you. And I want you to write that down. And the reason I'm saying that is you need to know and define success in your mind. My patient used to give me all kind of answers, and starting from somebody was, if I can continue to drive by myself and go to church every Sunday and stay independent till I die, that's successful aging to me. On the other side, I have also gotten an answer if I want to smoke a cigar once a day and drink scotch every night. And if I can do that for the rest of my life and die, that's successful aging for me. So it varies. And that's why I always say that write it down, and just not write it down for yourself. It's very important to also discuss these things with your friends and family. And the reason I'm saying this is a lot of time, something happens, and that time during emergency medical care, you are not able to make decision for yourself. And we as a doctor look towards your closest family member or caregiver. And it's very important because that time caregiver does not know a lot of time what your wishes are and what you would like to do. And those are the things kind of makes very burdensome on a caregiver. If they know that this is what you want, they will still feel sad to make certain decisions because you are sick, but they won't have that guilt or that weight on their shoulder when they are making those decisions. And I used to run a senior center, and one of the best example that we used to write it down, like what is something on your bucket list or what you would like to do. And honestly, their bucket list was not like, I want to go to Hawaii. I live in South Jersey. I'm 20 minutes from Philadelphia. And my patients will be like, Dr. P, I have never been to an Eagles game. Those are the bucket list and wishes we can actually help them fulfill. That, I can get an aide, get a transportation driver, use some connection, get them to a ticket that they can take a picture with the player. And that's like their wish. So let us know. Talk to your doctor, talk to your family member, what successful aging means to you. Write it down. What's on your bucket list? Let your caregiver and family know. So a lot of time people can help you with that.
I think that's something that all our listeners should write down, what successful aging means to you. And just take a little time next time you're with your mom, your dad, grandma, grandpa, depending on your age, or older relative, and get them thinking about it. First of all, I think it'll help them, the older person, but I think it'll also give you an insight on how you can work it. And I think, as you said, they're not looking for something monetary. It would be maybe a call from you once a week, or a little time with their grandson, or a day in the park once a month, something like that. So
exactly. And one of the favorite example I always say is, one patient always say that I want to celebrate my 85th birthday with my grandkids, grandkids, and great grandkids in Disney World, and that will be successful aging to me. And she had some healthcare conditions, so actually before she was going, I exactly gave her the medication that she needed, prepped her for the trip. I had a physician colleague just in case in Florida if my patient needs anything, and she made that trip, and she comes back and be like, Dr. Patel, this was successful aging for me. And that's something that gives me goosebumps still when I think about those stories.
I want to steal that one. And I think a lot of seniors out there are going to try to steal that idea, because it's a good one, a lot of fun. And who doesn't like Disney World?
Absolutely.
Dr. Patel, in your book, one of the things that impressed me, and I did not know it was that important, was hydration. So can you talk about that a little bit, and how that can help people?
Yes, absolutely. That is something that is understated, and a lot of time my patients, or usually this is regardless your age, people don't realize that they're always underhydrated. A lot of time you wake up, start working, and then next thing you will know, oh my God, it's already 11:30 and I didn't drink any water. And especially with seniors, what has happened, there was one study done at UCLA, and it says 40% of the patients are normally chronically underhydrated, which did not surprise me at all, because a lot of time when my patient comes to me and say, oh, Dr. Patel, I don't feel good, I feel tired. And, I do an oral exam and check the skin and everything, and most of them are dehydrated. I'm like, how much water do you drink? Oh, well, not really. I'm not drinking enough. And I always encourage them, drinking water is important. So the next question comes in is, how much water is important, right? So there's no specific rule, but the rule of thumb, what we call, is around 8 cups of 8 ounces a day. Is around 64 ounces a day, if you do not have any specific medical reason that you cannot intake that much water. But otherwise, that's a good rule of thumb. And my patient a lot of times says that, well, I'm not drinking water, but I'm drinking soda, coffee, or some tea. A lot of those things has something called theophylline or caffeine, which sometimes make you urinate more or pee more than usual. That could also make you dehydrated. So I call water the hero, because the calorie intake is 0.
Isn't that great? And then again, almost cost-free, certainly a minimal cost, something accessible to virtually everybody, certainly here in the United States. And it's interesting that you talk about it, because once I was going through a medical test and the technician was saying to me, if people realized how important hydration is, if we could put it in a pill, just take a tiny pill instead of drinking the water, they would do it. But because there's a real action to do it, and I'm guessing most of us use the excuse that you just said, and basically and honestly that I do, oh, I had a cup of coffee, I had soda, I had tea, but that's not really doing it. It's water that's the key, if I understand you correctly. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. Water is the one that's the key that keeps you hydrated, because a lot of time, a lot of patients don't realize, on top of that, they're on all this blood pressure medicine and everything too. So when you're taking medications, that also has some certain side effect. Now you are not drinking water. That's where a lot of the fatigue just comes. When they say, I don't feel good, you can ask your friend the first question now, how much water do you drink?
And that's going to be my new first question and see what happens. And they'll think I'm very smart, but I'll give you the credit for it. Once again, at this point in the show, I want to remind our audience, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan. Our guest today is Dr. Ankur Patel, Patel. He's the author of the book, Age is Just a Number. And Dr. Patel, we're going to ask you again, where can we get the book, and is there a website where we can learn more?
Yeah, so you can get the book on Amazon.com, just in search for Age is Just a Number by Dr. Patel, and it will be the top 2 or 3 book. It will be a beautiful cover with an empty bench, so you can sit and reflect. And please go to my website, www.drankurpatel.com. That's drankurpatel.com, and you can message me through that too.
And if you've been listening, you've heard us say, these are easy tips. You don't have to buy exercise equipment. You don't have to buy a food supplement or a magic pill or anything else. These are the things you have around the house, virtually walking, maybe a small exercise weight or something that you want to work in, depending on the senior's choice, and drinking some water. By the way, I also want our audience to know that if you want to hear this show again, or you want someone to listen to it so that it helps them, you can listen to a podcast at nccradio.org. That's nccradio.org. Just look for Secrets of Success and the show Age is Just a Number. Dr. Patel, we talked about hydration. Are there foods we should start staying away from as we get older?
So I always say that, because food sometimes get very confusing as new studies come out, new kind of diet comes out. So my patient will ask me, is keto okay for me or not okay for me? Or they heard about this new diet from my friend. But one thing I always say is use common sense. And when I say use common sense, eat more fresh vegetables, fruits are always on the plus side. Avoid fry food, and more fast food is something. Look at your ingredients. Sometimes lesser the ingredients on the package is better. And so a lot of time, and it's I have family, and when I go to Europe and I compare my kids' cereal, Fruit Loops or chips, and it amazes me that how much same Fruit Loops have so many ingredients in it in America and very less ingredients in UK. So, for food, it will change, but common sense. Vegetables, fruit is good. Fry food, fast food, avoid, and use common sense. You know that. And that's what I always say. Use common sense. And again, I always say, it's like, I'm not saying that stop eating fast food, or once in a while, everything is okay. But in limitations.
Most of us, as we get older, it seems we're not that physical specimen we thought we were when we were 20 or 30 or maybe during our high school or college years. What happens to our muscle mass, even if we are a fairly active person or we do some physical things during the day, as you said, the gardening or, taking care of maybe a farm or land where you're doing something physical? Do we just lose muscle mass as we get older?
Yeah. So as you age, you are more prone to lose muscle mass. And that's why I say use it or lose it. You might have heard a lot of your somebody who was admitted to the hospital. And next thing you will know, after hospital, they are going to rehab to gain strength. And my thing is why we are doing rehab and not prehab. And what I mean by prehab in hospital, when let's say a 75-year-old is in hospital for pneumonia and they're in bed for 5 days. 1 day in bed is equals to 3 to 4 days, 2 to 3 days of rehab. So somebody who was in the hospital for 5 days needs 10 to 15 days of rehab because they lost their muscle mass. Whereas if you're in a hospital, what I call the prehab program, they can walk 10 minutes in the hospital on the lobby with some help. That itself will reduces your chances to go into rehab because you are not losing as much muscle mass. You are not getting weaker. And to all your listeners, if you are in a hospital or some kind of setting, make sure your patient walk if it's safe medically for them to walk in the hospital. That this will keep their muscles intact and not become more frail.
And we see that, and I guess that's an association we make with a lot of people. As I mentioned to you before the show, I play golf, not very well, but I play. And just in the last week, in 2 different groups, I saw a man who was 90 and a woman 93 playing golf. And that's amazing. And both of them were,
that's awesome.
It wasn't what you'd call an old person because they were hitting the ball well, very active, and moving very quickly through the game. So I don't know if the activity helped the muscles do this or vice versa, but they were able to do it. It looked in great shape and I think enjoying life.
Yeah, staying engaged, right? So socialization, some kind of physical activity. And that is the best example, Bill, you gave, that I bet that their biological age might be at least 10 to 15 years younger than their chronological age, which you mentioned they're in the 90s.
Oh, I think absolutely. We see so much bad news in the world today. Is there anything we can do to stay positive or that you can recommend to us other than reading your book, Age is Just a Number? What else can we do?
I think I'm a very optimistic guy. That comes from my grandmother. I always say the glass is always full, even if it's half empty, like, half with water, half with air. I think that's my thing to look at it. But where I learned more about positivity in life is actually from my patients. I take care of geriatric patients and I talk to a lot of patients during the end of life. And none of the patients have told me that, Dr. P, I wish I made more money in my life. Everybody said, Dr. Patel, I wish I spent more time with my family. I wish I traveled more when I was younger. I wish. So it's all the wish that they have. And I kind of learned that, time is not our friend, and it stay positive, let the grudges go, which I call it like, let it go, the Frozen song, let it go. Like, just let it go. Sometimes it's not worth holding grudges, stay positive. And one of my mentors, Jack Canfield, always tells that in his seminars is E plus R equals to O, which is E is an event. That event is not in your hand. Things happens, good things, bad thing happens. It's not in your hand. But how you respond to that event is in our hand.
I love it. And in fact, if you see me writing all this down as you did, I'm taking it all down for you. And I think Let It Go, I think that's going to be the title of your next book. So I think that's a great starting point, or at least a magazine article or something in there. Before we wrap up, Dr. Patel, give us the location. Where can we get that book, Age is Just a Number?
It's available on Amazon. Just search for Age is Just a Number by Dr. Patel, and it will be one of the top 3 books. And contact me on drunkurpatel.com, Dr. Ankur, Ankur, Patel, Patel.com.
Dr. Patel, thanks so much for being with us today. I'd like to remind our audience that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.